The Galactic archives floated like a shining star in the middle of space. It was not just a library, it was the memory of the entire galaxy. Every race, every empire, every war, and every discovery was written inside its endless halls. Scholars came from light years away to read here, but not a single word was ever lost or corrupted. The archives were sacred. Nothing ever changed until the day the alarms rang. The sound was sharp, cutting through the quiet halls. Thousands of alien scholars looked up from their glowing tablets. Guards rushed forward, their metal boots striking the crystal floor. Something impossible had happened. Something new had entered the archives. "Impossible," whispered one of the elder scholars, his skin pale and ridged like carved stone. "No text can appear without permission." But the text had appeared. A single book, thick, ancient, bound in dark material that no one could identify, lay floating in the center of the hall. The glow around it was strange, not like the usual light of the archives. It seemed alive, pulsing like a heartbeat. The guards closed in quickly. "Do not touch it," cried another scholar. "It might be dangerous." But curiosity was stronger than fear. A younger guard reached out, and as his fingers brushed the surface, the book snapped open by itself. The pages turned rapidly, as if invisible hands were searching for something inside. Then it stopped. The letters on the page shimmered, forming a single line. The guard fell back in shock. "It has a name!" he shouted. Everyone leaned closer. On the glowing page, written in sharp black ink, was a name that sent shivers down the hall. It was a name no one expected to see, a name spoken only in forbidden whispers. The council leader's voice trembled as he read it aloud. "Human." A heavy silence fell. Some gasped, others recoiled in fear. The word itself felt dangerous. One of the scholars hissed, "Erase it at once, before it spreads." But the name could not be erased. Every attempt failed. The book resisted, closing itself, opening again as though it were alive. The guards panicked. The book was carried quickly into the restricted wing, locked behind barriers of light and steel. The alarms finally stopped, but the silence that followed was worse. "Who could have written this?" one alien whispered to another. "No one," the elder replied. "Humans are a legend. They do not exist." Yet the name was there, written boldly, refusing to disappear. That night, long after the hall was empty, one young historian could not sleep. She was small, with pale silver skin and long robes of blue. Curiosity burned inside her like fire. Why had the council reacted with such fear? Why was the name so dangerous? Quietly, she slipped past the guards and into the restricted wing. The barriers hummed with power, but she had studied the archives for years. She knew the secret paths. Within minutes, she stood before the glowing cell. The book floated inside, waiting. Her hands shook as she touched the barrier. "What are you?" she whispered. The barrier flickered, almost as if the book had heard her. And then, against every rule of the galaxy, the barrier opened. The book drifted into her hands. It was heavier than she expected, its surface warm, almost alive. She opened it slowly, her breath caught in her throat. The letters inside were unlike any she had ever seen. The script was sharp and strange, but as she stared, the words began to shift, reshaping into her own language. Her eyes widened. The first line read, "This is the history of a species that should never have been forgotten." She turned the pages quickly, her heart racing. Each page told stories, wars fought against monsters larger than planets, inventions that changed the course of time, survival against impossible odds. But what frightened her most was not the battles, it was the ideas. The book spoke of strength, strategy, and resilience that could outmatch any empire in the galaxy. "Humans," she whispered again. Suddenly a voice echoed in the empty hall. "Step away from the book. She spun around. A council guard stood in the shadows, his armor shining under the pale lights. His weapon hummed, aimed directly at her. "You are not supposed to be here," he said coldly. Her heart pounded. "This book, it cannot be destroyed. Don't you see? Someone wanted us to read it." The guard stepped closer, his eyes narrow. "That name is forbidden. Do you know why?" She shook her head. He lowered his voice. "Because if humans were real, they would be the most dangerous species in the galaxy. More dangerous than any army, more dangerous than any empire. And someone doesn't want them remembered." The book pulsed in her hands, the glow spreading through her fingers like fire. She gasped as the pages flipped again, stopping on a new line that seemed written just for her. "Knowledge cannot be banned forever. The truth always returns." The guard stared at the page, his face pale. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he whispered, almost to himself, "It knows we are reading." The book snapped shut, the sound echoing through the hall like thunder. The glow faded, leaving only silence. The young historian clutched it tightly, her mind spinning with questions. Who had written these words? How had the book entered the archives without permission? And most terrifying of all, what if the humans were not a myth? The guard finally lowered his weapon. His voice was grim. "You have opened something that should never have been touched. The council will come for you, and when they do, they will not show mercy." Her eyes burned with determination. "Then I will keep reading. If the galaxy is afraid of this truth, maybe it is because the truth is more powerful than their fear." In the distance, the alarms began to ring again. The archives were waking, aware that the forbidden book had been touched. And for the first time in centuries, the galaxy trembled at the sound of a single dangerous word: human. The night inside the Galactic archives was always quiet, but that night the silence felt heavy, almost alive. The young historian could not rest. The memory of the forbidden book burned in her mind. She kept hearing the word that had shaken the entire council: human. She walked the long crystal corridors with careful steps. Every corner was guarded by machines of light and metal, but she knew their patterns. She had studied this place since she was a child. Tonight, her knowledge would betray the very rules she had sworn to protect. When she reached the restricted chamber, her heart raced. The air here was colder, as if the archives themselves wanted to keep intruders away. The book floated inside, its cage of glowing shields, silent and still, yet its presence felt powerful. She whispered to herself, "I only need a moment, just one more look." As if the book had heard her, the barrier trembled and flickered. A thin crack of light opened. Her eyes widened. You want me to read you?" Her hands shook as she stepped forward. The shield dissolved, and the book drifted into her arms like it had been waiting for her. She gasped at its weight. The cover pulsed faintly under her fingers, warm like living skin. She opened it carefully. The words shifted on the page until they formed in her own language. The first passage spoke of ancient wars, beasts that swallowed suns, empires that crumbled, and armies that fell. But again and again, one species appeared, a species called human. Her lips moved as she read aloud. In a whisper, they fought without fear. They survived when survival was impossible. They turned weakness into strength. The words fascinated her, but they also frightened her. No race she knew could match what the pages described. Then she reached a story about a battle where humans had been outnumbered 1,000 to 1. Instead of surrendering, they had created weapons from scraps, traps from ruins, and turned the enemy's power against them. By dawn, the impossible had happened. The humans had won. Her breath caught. How could they do this? A voice suddenly came from behind. Because they were not like us. She spun around, startled. A tall figure stepped from the shadows. It was the same guard who had caught her before. His armor gleamed, his weapon ready. "You again," she whispered. His voice was stern but softer than before. "I warned you. This book will destroy you." She clutched it tighter. Then why does it let me read? Why does it open for me and no one else? The guard's jaw tightened. He stepped closer, lowering his weapon just slightly. Because it wants something. Books in the archives are not alive. This one is different. It chose you. Her chest tightened. But why? The guard's gaze fell on the glowing pages. Keep reading. Perhaps you will learn. Hesitant, she turned the page. This time the words were stranger, darker. They told of humans not only fighting, but also creating ideas that spread like fire. Hope, rebellion, freedom. They were ideas more dangerous than any weapon. Entire empires had fallen, not from battles, but from the humans' ability to make. Others believe in those words. She whispered, they changed the galaxy. With thoughts. The guard's eyes narrowed. And that is why the Council fears them. A weapon can be destroyed. But an idea cannot be erased. Her hands trembled. The pages flipped again on their own, faster and faster, until they stopped at a line written larger than the rest. We are never gone. We are the shadow behind your stars. The historian's heart pounded. This means they still exist. The guard shook his head quickly. No, they were wiped out long ago. The Council made sure of it. But even as he spoke, his voice carried doubt. He could not look her in the eyes. She turned to him sharply. You don't believe that. You're afraid. You think they're still out there. The guard said nothing, but the silence itself was an answer. The book glowed brighter, filling the chamber with a strange hum. The historian felt her skin prickle as new words wrote themselves across the page right before her eyes. If you are reading this, then our silence has ended. The time is near, her breath caught. It's speaking now. The guard raised his weapon again, fear in his eyes. Close it. Now. But she couldn't. Her fingers clung to the pages as if they were bound to her. The words continued to form, glowing stronger. You will carry our voice. You will remember what they tried to erase. Tears filled her eyes. Why me? I'm no warrior. I'm no leader. The guard's voice trembled. Because the book doesn't need a warrior. It needs a witness. The chamber began to shake, the crystal walls humming with power. Across the archives, alarms erupted once more. The Council would come soon. The guard cursed under his breath. They will kill you for this. She looked up at him, clutching the book against her chest. Then help me escape. You know they are wrong to hide this truth. His eyes met hers. For a long moment, he stood frozen, torn between duty and something deeper. Finally, he lowered his weapon. If they discover what you hold, they will destroy us both, but I cannot deny what I saw. The book is alive, and if it is alive, then perhaps so are they. She nodded quickly. Then we must find them. The book pulsed in agreement, its light spreading until it filled the room like a rising sun. Outside, the footsteps of soldiers thundered closer. The Council was coming. But inside the chamber, two figures stood united, holding the forbidden book that whispered of a forgotten species. And in that moment, both the historian and the guard knew the truth. The galaxy's most dangerous secret was no longer hidden. The humans were not just history. They were waiting. The grand hall of the Galactic Council shimmered with cold light. Thousands of crystal panels floated overhead, displaying shifting stars, wars of the past, and names of empires that no longer existed. It was a place of order, a place where fear was never allowed to show. But tonight, fear was all that filled the air. The council chamber was crowded. Dozens of alien leaders sat in towering seats, each body shaped by their own world, scaled, feathered, furred, or plated with armor-like skin. Their voices clashed like thunder, rising higher with every passing moment. "The book must be destroyed," one councillor shouted, his 6 eyes burning with anger. "Its very presence is a danger to us all." Another hissed in reply, her serpentine body coiling around her seat. "You fool! If it cannot be destroyed, then what you suggest is impossible. It resists erasure. That means it has power, power we do not understand. The hall erupted into more voices. Some demanded silence. Others shouted for answers. At the center of it all sat the High Speaker, a tall figure with pale blue skin and a crown of living light. He raised his hand, and the voices faded to uneasy whispers. "Councillors," the High Speaker said slowly, his voice deep and steady, though his eyes betrayed unease. "The archives have been violated. A forbidden book appeared within our most sacred chamber. Its name speaks of a species long thought to be extinct. The word alone has shaken us. The word—" He paused, as if the sound itself carried danger. "Human." A wave of shivers moved across the chamber. Some lowered their heads, others tightened their claws against their seats. No one dared speak for a moment. Finally, a thin, insect-like councillor clicked her mandibles. "The humans are gone. Legends only. Children's tales. They cannot harm us." "Then explain this," another shouted, holding up a crystal tablet. "The book tells of battles that match our history. Events we know to be true. How could a myth record such things?" The High Speaker's gaze swept across the hall. "That is the question. Who is the author? Who dares write in the name of humans? And how did the book bypass the eternal defenses of the archives?" Murmurs spread like fire. Some whispered that the book was cursed. Others feared that humans had returned. A councillor with dark stone-like skin rose. His voice rumbled like an earthquake. "If the humans live, then every empire here is at risk. We know what they were capable of. Their wars, their inventions, their endless defiance. No chains could hold them. If they rise again, we all fall." The chamber shook with agreement, but not everyone was convinced. A younger councillor leaned forward, his scaled face calm. "Or perhaps this book is a warning, not a threat. Perhaps humans left it for us to learn, to prepare." Laughter echoed from the opposite side of the hall. A massive horned councillor slammed his claw against the table. "Prepare? For what? For our destruction, do you not understand? Wherever humans walked, chaos followed. If their knowledge spreads again, entire systems will burn. This book must be hidden, sealed in the deepest vault. None may speak its name." The High Speaker raised his hand again. Silence. The room quieted, though unease still lingered like smoke. He continued, his voice heavy. "The Council cannot agree on the fate of the book, but one thing is clear. It is dangerous. Until we understand its purpose, anyone caught speaking of it will face erasure." A chill swept the chamber. Erasure was the Council's most feared punishment, a complete wiping of memory and identity. To speak the forbidden word now was to risk becoming nothing. Suddenly, a message flickered across the crystal panels above. A guard's voice crackled through the hall. "High Speaker, forgive the intrusion, but the book has been touched." Again, the chamber erupted into chaos. "What?" voices shouted. "By who? How?" The guard's voice trembled. "A historian, and one of our own guards. They are missing, and the book is gone." The silence that followed was worse than the shouting. Every councillor froze, their eyes wide, their bodies tense. The High Speaker rose slowly, his expression grave. "Gone?" "Yes," the guard's voice whispered through the chamber. "It chose them. It opened for them." The council exploded into panic. Some screamed for war, others demanded immediate hunts. The very order of the galaxy seemed to crumble. The High Speaker slammed his staff against the floor. The hall shook with the force. "Enough!" he roared. His voice, usually calm, now thundered with anger. "Do you not see? The book does not obey us. It obeys itself, and now it walks among us in the hands of two traitors." One of the elder councillors whispered, "Not traitors. Chosen." All eyes turned toward him. His scaled face was pale, his voice shaking. You know the old prophecy. The archives would awaken when the forgotten name returned. It is not the historian who is dangerous, nor the guard. It is the book itself, and what follows it. The words sent a chill across the chamber. The High Speaker narrowed his eyes. If the prophecy is true, then the humans are not gone. They wait, and this is their message. The hall fell silent, every councillor realizing the same terrifying thought. If the humans had written the book, if they were watching through it, then the galaxy had already been marked. Finally, the High Speaker spoke again, his tone cold and final. Send word to every system. Hunt down the historian and the guard. The book must not reach the hands of the people. If it does... He paused, his gaze distant, almost fearful. The galaxy will remember, and if it remembers, the humans will return. For a long time, no one moved. The councillors sat in silence, each gripped by the same dread. Above them, the crystal panel shifted, showing the stars. Somewhere, hidden among those endless lights, the truth waited. And the fear, inside the chamber, whispered a single thought. The humans were not gone. They were closer than anyone dared to believe. The ship moved silently through the black of space, its engines cloaked to hide from the patrols of the council. Inside, the young historian sat across from the guard, the forbidden book glowing softly between them. The hum of the pages filled the small chamber like a heartbeat, constant and alive. She leaned closer, her silver eyes fixed on the shifting letters. Every time I open it, the words change. It writes itself as if it knows what I need to see. Guard's grip tightened on his weapon. His voice was low, filled with unease. That's what frightens me. It is not just a book. It is a messenger. Something, or someone, is using it. She touched the glowing surface. Then let it speak. The pages fluttered open, stopping at a new chapter. The letters burned brighter than before, reshaping into clear sentences. She read aloud, her voice trembling. We fought the great predators of the stars. We survived the endless cold. We turned fear into fire. Remember this, we do not vanish. We wait. Her chest tightened as she whispered, This is not history. This is a warning. The guard's expression darkened. No, it's a promise. He rose to his feet, pacing the narrow cabin. Do you understand what this means? Every empire has told the same story, that humans were gone forever, wiped out. But if this book is real, if these words are true, then they are still out there. The historian looked up from the pages. Maybe they never left. Before the guard could answer, the ship's alarm buzzed faintly. He rushed to the control screen. A squad of council hunters had entered the system. Their ships glowed like shards of glass, moving fast. They've found us, he said grimly. Her voice was steady, though her hands shook. Then we have no choice. We must learn everything before they reach us. The book pulsed, as if agreeing. The pages turned violently, revealing drawings, strange machines, weapons unlike anything in the archives, starships built with brutal efficiency. Each one was labeled with human words that shifted into her own language as she read. She gasped. These are designs, weapons, fleets. The guard stared at the images. No, not fleets. These are war machines, the kind that could tear through entire empires. Her hand brushed across the page, tracing the image of a massive vessel shaped like a blade. Why would the book show us this? The letters below the image rearranged. New words formed. We built these not for conquest, but for survival. Every enemy stronger than us, every battle lost before it began. We learned, we adapted, and when we struck, the stars trembled. The historian's breath quickened. They turned survival into strategy, weakness into strength. The guard, muttered almost to himself. No wonder the council feared them. The ship shook suddenly as distant blasts echoed through the hull. The hunters had spotted them. Red lights flashed across the cabin. They'll destroy us before we can escape, the guard warned. But the historian's eyes were locked on the book. Wait, look! The words shifted again, faster now, glowing like fire. If you are hunted, remember this. Every enemy has a weakness. Find it, use it, turn their strength against them. Her eyes widened. It's telling us what to do. The guard looked from the book to the flashing screen, his jaw clenched. Are you saying we follow its instructions? She nodded. Do you have a better plan? For a long moment he said nothing, then he slammed his hand against the console. Fine. Let's trust the ghost of a species that should not exist. The book's glow spread across the cabin, projecting strange symbols into the air. The guard's eyes widened as he recognized the patterns. These are weak points in their formation. No one outside the council military knows this. Then how does the book? She asked. He didn't answer. Instead, he turned the ship sharply, following the glowing map. The vessel darted between two enemy cruisers. Plasma fire streaked past them, but the ship slid through untouched. The book glowed brighter, showing another path, another hidden angle. Within minutes, the impossible had happened. The council hunters were gone, confused and unable to follow. The guard collapsed into his seat, sweat dripping down his face. That was not luck. That was knowledge. Ancient knowledge. The historian held the book against her chest. It knows the enemy better than they know themselves. The pages flipped again, revealing another message. To the one who reads, "This, you are chosen. Carry our truth. When the galaxy trembles, we will return." Her voice broke as she whispered, They're coming back." The guard stared at her, his voice heavy with dread. If that's true, then everything we know will collapse. The council, the empires, the archives, none of it will survive their return. The historian met his eyes, her own filled with fire. Or maybe it is not collapse. Maybe it is justice. They erased humans because they feared them. But you've seen what I've seen. They fought not for conquest, but for survival. What if they return not as conquerors, but as liberators? The guard shook his head. Or as executioners. The ship drifted into the shadow of a dead star, hiding from the patrols. The historian placed her hand on the glowing cover of the book. It pulsed once, steady and alive, like a heart waiting to beat again. Her voice was a whisper in the darkness. Whatever they are not gone. The guard looked out at the endless stars, unease twisting in his chest. For the first time, he felt something he had never admitted before. It was not just fear, it was hope. The stars outside the small ship seemed endless, but inside, silence pressed heavier than the void. The historian sat with the forbidden book in her lap, its glow soft but restless, like it was waiting for something. Across from her, the guard stared at her with tired eyes, his weapon leaning against his knee. At last, he broke the silence. Every time you open it, it shows more. But the question remains. Why you? Why not anyone else? She touched the cover gently. I don't know. Maybe because I asked. Maybe because I wanted the truth, not the lie the council tells. The guard's jaw tightened. The council will never stop. They'll hunt us until we're ash. Before she could answer, the book shivered in her hands. The pages turned violently, faster than before, until they stopped at a single glowing chapter. The words burned brighter than any she had seen yet. She read aloud, her voice unsteady. The author of these words is no myth. The author is no ghost. I am alive. I write from the shadows of your galaxy. The guard froze. His voice dropped to a whisper. Alive? That's not possible. The historian's eyes widened. It's not a history book. It's a message from a human. The book glowed hotter, almost too bright to hold. New words formed. They tried to erase us. They failed. We endured in silence. But silence cannot last forever. When this book finds you, know this: humanity remains. The guard stepped back, as though the words themselves were dangerous. If this is true, if humans survived, then everything changes. She looked up at him, fire burning in her eyes. Don't you see? This is not the end of a species. This is the return of one. The ship rocked suddenly as an alarm flared. The guard rushed to the console. Council scouts, they're closing in. Her hands gripped the book tightly. Then we don't run. We finish this. Let it speak. Dia. Book's glow spread, filling the cabin with a storm of light. The words expanded into the air, forming images, strange cities made of steel, endless armies, starships rising like mountains. The historian whispered, "These are memories." A voice filled the chamber, not from her mouth, not from the guard, but from the book itself. It was strong, deep, unmistakably human. We were never gods. We were never perfect, but we were relentless. The galaxy feared us because it could not break us. Remember this: our story is not finished. The guard's face turned pale. It's speaking to us directly. The voice continued, calm but heavy with warning. The council erased us from the archives. They spread lies of our extinction. But we live still, hidden among the dark, and soon we will rise. The ship shook again as the hunters drew closer, but neither of them moved. They were trapped in the glow of the words, unable to look away. The historian whispered, "Where are you? Where are the humans now?" The answer appeared, written across the glowing air, closer than you think, watching, waiting, preparing. The guard's fists clenched. "Why reveal yourself now?" The reply came instantly. "Because the galaxy is weak, corrupt, divided. The empires rot from within, and when the time comes, humanity will not ask permission to return. We will take it." The historian gasped. The words filled her with both fear and awe. "You sound like conquerors." The voice softened. "No, survivors. But survival demands strength. If they call that conquest, so be it." The guard stepped closer to her, his voice sharp. "Do you not see? If this is true, then the council was right to fear them. They will destroy everything." "But—" The historian shook her head. "Or rebuild it. The book didn't find them, it found us. That means something. It chose us because it knows we will listen, not just fear." The book pulsed as if in agreement. Another line burned across the pages. "To the one who carries this book, you are the bridge. Through you, we will speak. Through you, we will return." Her breath caught. "It's me. It chose me." The guard stared at her, torn between anger and disbelief. "Then you're no longer just a historian. You're their messenger." Before she could reply, the ship's hull trembled violently. The hunters had found them at last. Beams of light slashed past the window, scorching the void. "They'll tear us apart in seconds," the guard shouted. The historian held the book tighter, her voice steady. "No, the book will guide us." The pages flared open, filling the cabin with a final message. "Do not fear their weapons. Fear blinds them. Their weakness is their arrogance. Strike, and they will fall." The guard gritted his teeth. This is madness. But his hands moved across the console anyway. Following the glowing map, the book projected into the air. The ship twisted, darting through enemy fire with impossible precision. Each move matched the book's instructions. Within moments, the hunters were gone, defeated, scattered into the dark. The guard leaned back in disbelief. This is not just a book, it's a strategy, a guide, a living mind." The historian looked down at the glowing cover, her voice trembling. "No, it's more than that. It's proof. Proof that humans are alive. Proof that they're coming back." The final words on the page burned brighter than stars. "You have remembered us, and now we will remember you." The historian closed the book gently, her hands shaking. Her eyes met the guard's. "We are no longer alone," she whispered, and somewhere in the endless galaxy, far beyond the reach of the council, a human hand might have been writing still. The stars beyond the ship glowed faintly, silent witnesses to a secret no empire wished to face. Inside the cabin, the historian sat with the book in her lap. The guard stood near the window, his eyes scanning the emptiness. Neither spoke for a long time, but the weight of the words they had read still lingered like thunder waiting to break. Finally, the guard said in a low voice, "We escaped the hunters, but this doesn't feel like victory. It feels like the beginning of something worse." The historian looked down at the book. The glow had dimmed, yet it pulsed like a heartbeat. "It is the beginning." The word said, "Humans remain." If that's true, then the galaxy is living a lie. The guard turned sharply. "Do you even hear yourself? If they are alive, do you think they'll come back with peace? No, they'll come with fire. You've seen the warnings." Her voice softened but carried strength. "And yet, maybe they're what the galaxy needs. The empires are corrupt. The council controls history with fear. Maybe humanity's return will bring balance." He shook his head. "Or ruin." Before he could say more, the book stirred again. The pages fluttered wildly, then stopped on a blank sheet. New words burned into the surface. "To the one who carries this book, you have proven yourself worthy. The path is open. The author calls." The historian gasped. "The author, the one who wrote all this, they're calling me." The guard's face darkened. "Or luring you into a trap." But the cabin filled with light again, brighter this time, forming a map of stars. At the center, a single point burned crimson. The historian whispered, "That's where we go." The guard clenched his fists. "You don't even know what's waiting there." She met his gaze with unshakable resolve. "I know enough. The author is alive, and they want us to find them." The ship moved as if pulled by unseen hands. The map, projected by the book, guided them through hidden routes, past dead systems, through regions no one dared to cross. Hours blurred into days, but the light never faded. At last, the stars parted to reveal a world unlike any they had seen. It was dark, wrapped in mist, with colossal ruins rising from its surface. The ship descended slowly, guided to a broken landing site. The historian's voice trembled. "This place, it feels ancient, but alive." The guard tightened his grip. On his weapon, or cursed, they stepped onto the surface. The air was cold, the ground cracked, and massive statues loomed around them. Statues of humans carved with stern faces, eyes staring into eternity. The historian touched one with shaking hands. Proof. They were here. But before the guard could reply, the book glowed fiercely, pulling itself from her hands. It floated toward the ruins, pages burning with unreadable fire. A doorway opened in the largest structure, revealing a tunnel of light. The historian whispered, "The author waits." The guard growled, "This is madness, but I'll follow you, if only to make sure you come back." They walked into the tunnel. The walls shifted with images, armies marching, ships rising, worlds falling, all human. The air vibrated with voices, 1,000 whispers of history erased. At the end of the tunnel stood a chamber. In the center was a figure seated on a throne of steel and shadow. The figure's face was hidden, but its presence filled the air with power. The book rested in its hands. The historian's knees nearly gave out. You're real." The figure's voice was deep, steady, and undeniably human. "You carry my words. You carry my memory, and now you stand before me." The guard raised his weapon, but his hands shook. "Who are you?" The figure leaned forward, the glow of the book reflecting in its eyes. "I am the author, the last keeper of humanity's truth, and soon the first voice of its return." The historian's breath caught. "The council said you were myths, The author's laugh was bitter. The council feared us. They buried us under lies. But truth cannot die, not while one hand remembers to write. The guard spat the words out. If humans are alive, why stay hidden? Why not reveal yourselves? The author's gaze pierced him, because survival demanded silence. But silence has its end. The galaxy rots, empires fall. And now the time to rise has come. The historian stepped forward, her voice shaking but full of hope. Then it's true. Humanity will return. The author rose from the throne, tall and commanding, the book glowing brighter in his grip. Yes, but we will not return alone. We will return with those who believed, those who carried the truth when all others surrendered to lies. That is why you are here. Her eyes widened. Me? The author nodded. You found my words. You gave them voice again. You are the bridge between what was erased and what must be remembered. The guard's voice hardened. And what if I refuse? What if I stand against you? The author stepped closer, his shadow engulfing the room. Then you will be swept aside, as all who resist will be. History does not wait for the fearful. Silence stretched, heavy and sharp. The guard lowered his weapon slowly, his face torn between fear and defiance. The historian whispered, "What happens now?" The author raised the book high. Its light filled the chamber, spreading through the ruins, into the sky, across the stars themselves. Now, the author declared, the galaxy will remember. Humanity is not gone. Humanity is eternal, and soon humanity will rule again. The ground shook, the statues trembled, and across the galaxy hidden signals awoke. Ships stirring in forgotten hangars, armies rising from shadows, voices whispering. In every corner, the historian fell to her knees, overwhelmed. It's beginning. The guard looked at her, his face pale. No, it's already begun. And in the ruins of the forgotten world, the author smiled, for the first chapter of Humanity's Return had finally been written.